Okay, you guys, I'm going to read you part of a larger story that I wrote. So it's called The Great Gatsby. Here we go. Please, Mom, can we keep him? I did not say. I was in charge. I answered to no one for the first time in my life. The feeling of empowerment as I stood in front of the pet store window was emboldening. And yet, that sense of power quickly melted to puppy love as I watched the pint-sized bulldog pounce a sleeping Cocker Spaniel in a 6x3 store window. I was alone, with no one to talk me off the ledge. I had just bought my first condo and was no longer governed by the rules of a rental agreement. Dogs have always had a pull on me. As a kid, I wanted a four-legged pal to throw a ball for so intensely that I let this obsession get the best of me in 3rd grade, when I thought I could surely wear my parents down. The idea was that if they thought I was going crazy with frustration, they would eventually be so worried for me that they would cave and give in to my every desire. So the plan was hatched. I pretended I had an imaginary dog with me at all times for an entire week. He would sit with me at the table, I would take him for after-dinner walks, and the crowning jewel was the water bowl I placed in the hallway for all to trip over. Foolproof. How could this not lead to a dog? But an entire week into my scheme produced no results. No one minded when Fido didn't eat his broccoli. No one seemed to mind me proclaiming that I was taking him on a walk alone, and they quickly learned to side-stride the water dish. I decided that my dog was too quiet and would need to bark more often to make his presence known. My parents shot back with tough ammo when they sat me down and slyly mentioned finding a psychologist. Parents 1, me 0. I dropped my act. So it was with bated breath 15 years later that I stood over a 5-pound beagle with ears long enough to drag 2 trails of water through my newly purchased condo. I named my tri-colored scamp Gatsby and delighted in the way he hid his eyes in the crook of my arm to fall asleep. Gatsby found enemies in boxes of tissues, and his need to destroy the enemy in entirety was impressive. He could chew the corner of the coffee table to a jagged and splintered point and knock over bathroom trash cans with the grace of a hippo. Life with Gatsby was a battle of wits. He would find trouble, like the time he dragged each item of clothing down the stairs to create Gatsby Mountain. I would find a solution, like the time I put up a baby gate and secured him in the kitchen while I went to work. And then he would find a way to outsmart me, like eating the kitchen cabinet doors. It went on and on. But when I plopped down on the couch after a long day in the classroom, the kind of day only a first-year teacher can appreciate, my Gatsby nestled in, happy to accept me despite all the day's many faults and missteps. Yes, Gatsby saw me through many firsts. On a beautiful dog walk through the Naples canals in Long Beach, Gatsby wagged his tail while my husband dropped to one knee. When my husband and I bought our first condo, Gatsby was overjoyed to christen each corner of the yard. He paced the floor with me when I went into labor, and he was the only one who stayed up all night with me, night after night, with a colicky newborn. For the most important moments in my life, my Gatsby played a role.
Okay, I'll start. I really like the beginning when you talked about looking at I believe it was the dog for the first time, and that there's just this really short, clear imagery of the pint-sized bulldog pouncing on the sleeping Cocker Spaniel, or that was when you were younger and looking through that window. And also there's a couple times in the beginning where I really like the variety of sentences, where you've got like these long sentences and then little short ones that are really humorous, like my parents shot back with tough ammo when they saw me down and slyly mentioned finding a psychologist. Parents 1, me 0. I dropped my act. And those things really stand out. They give you a lot of, that can definitely get your voice through that sentence structure and also the imagery in the beginning.
I also like with that how you kind of turn it into you against your parents, and then later you against the dog, and you always kind of lose. But it's funny. It adds a good little bit of humor into the story. I also like the way you put an interesting twist on a lot of your phrases. Like, it's unexpected and it draws me in. Like when you say, "Please, Mom, can we keep him?" I did not say. And then later you talk about the grace of a hippo. Those kind of unexpected twists on your terminology are really add that sense of humor to the piece that makes it really good.
That was one of my golden lines. He could chew the corner of the coffee table to a jagged and splintered point and knock over bathroom trash cans with the grace of a hippo. I loved the imagery in that. I loved the chewing the corner off and then the grace that you're trying to balance it out with. I loved that line. I could see that.
Thank you.
Okay.
You go next.
I'll go next, yeah. This is my story. And I have one question for you to think about while I read it. I haven't come up with a title yet. So if you have any suggestions for me, that would be great. Okay, here we go. No, this is not happening. I am going to die. When I saw the blur of teeth, fur, saliva come crashing through the trees, my blood turned to ice. My heart stopped. I instantly quit breathing. I knew what was happening. I knew. My heart knew. My brain knew. But my voice refused to say the word. Bear. It was a bear streaking down the trail, coming right at us as we hiked through the golden twilight. It was coming fast, breathing heavy. His muscles rippled under his great furry coat, and strings of saliva streamed from the corners of his blue-black lips in rhythm with each grunt. I'm an experienced hiker, comfortable and confident when the unexpected arises on the trail. Unexpected rainstorm? No problem. Snake on the trail? I don't miss a beat. But for some reason, this bear completely stopped me in my tracks. I should have grabbed my whistle and blown a shrill note in his direction. If not the whistle, then shouting, clapping my hands, waving my arms, making my presence known, making myself seem big. Instead of any of the tried and true scare the bear away tricks, I slowly and calmly turned toward my hiking partner. In the tiniest little whisper, I said, "It's a bear." His response was equally calm. "What do we do?" I responded with all the confidence I felt. "I don't know." With that critical conversation done, I turned to face my fate again. All of the cliches about life and death experiences kicked in. Time slowed to a crawl, sounds dulled to a gentle murmur. I felt the gentle glow of fond memories wash over me as I watched the bear draw nearer and nearer in terrifying slow motion. Then, in a rush of sound and wind and emotion, the bear veered to the left and went crashing through the underbrush. As the sounds of twigs snapping and bear grunts receded into the far reaches of the woods, the ice in my veins thawed and melted into a puddle on the forest floor. I couldn't believe that we had survived the vicious bear attack. In fact, I couldn't believe that there had been no vicious bear attack. With my cheek pressed into a soft bed of mulch and the fresh scent of crushed pine surrounding me, I filled my lungs with sweet mountain air and allowed my pulse to return to normal. As my surroundings came back into focus, I realized that there was a small, smooth stone directly beneath my temple. Clambering to my feet, I picked up the stone and slipped it into my pocket. As we hiked down the mountain through the gathering darkness, I rolled the stone between my thumb and forefinger. It seemed to me a small reminder of all that can go right with the world. Its weight there in my palm, a comforting reminder of the gift of life and breath and health. And now, many years later, that small stone sits on the shelf by my bed. Each morning I open my eyes, and those reminders, that rush of life, fill me anew.
What about a title like The Stone instead? Because you'd think it would be the bear, but really at the end, the stone is a really critical image. That might be a neat title. And I also wanted to say in the first paragraph, I like your short sentence structure because I think it adds to that sense of panic about a bear attack. So I really liked that. Those phrases, my heart knew, my brain knew, they stand out.
I highlighted that too. We learned about anaphora and that repetition of a specific word, and how when you use it right, it really drives the point home, and I think you did that perfectly there. I knew what was happening. I knew. My heart knew. My brain knew. It's really effective. And then another literary device that I noticed you used was a syndeton right here in the middle. If not the whistle, then shouting, clapping my hands, waving my arms, making my presence known, making myself seem big. And without putting a conjunction in there, you make us think that the list goes on, and it wasn't just limited to this. So I liked how you used that.
Well, actually, the first or the the second paragraph, I guess, when I saw the blur of teeth for saliva. I like that you didn't put an and, because that list just makes it feel more panicky.
The beginning really sets up a lot of the story, and you don't even need to like talk about the bear and the rest because of that first paragraph. You've got the word choice. Your diction goes a lot with movement. So when the bear's coming through, you've got streaking down the trail. Where'd it go? His
Crashing through the underbrush.
crashing, yeah, rippling, and saliva streaming. So like you get this, all that diction goes with a lot of momentum, and you get that at the beginning. Then you can kind of go over to you, and we're still thinking about all that movement. So it was a really good setup for the rest of it. And you didn't, like, again, you didn't even need to talk about the bear too much because we're just picturing the bear the whole time we're reading the story. And I thought that was really effective in the beginning.
Thank you.
All right, I'll go next.
Okay.
And so this one's called Upstairs Units, and it's about, I wrote it when I lived in my condominium, which was very small, before I moved to a house. There are two kinds of units at Quail Ridge. I live in one kind, the downstairs unit with 3 bedrooms, made for a small family. The upstairs kind has 1 bedroom with a vaulted ceiling. When people come to visit, they always say it looks like cabins in the woods because of the many pine trees that envelope the condos. The center of each circle holds the carport, and after I park my car, the second floor windows peek out and watch while I duck into my home. In the afternoon, the windows glare sunlight, and except for a few faded neighborhood watch stickers, shadows, tree reflections, and the outlines of neighbors become one shifting apparition. Just to the right of my front door, and 1 unit up, Chris watches through a security camera. The camera is to catch the thief who is trying to get inside. He suspects it's Bob, the neighbor who attempted to kill himself but died 2 days later of pneumonia, from the upstairs unit 2 doors down. Chris used to watch through the curtains at night, and when the sun hit his window, the grease outline of his face could be seen, making a ghostly frown of concern. When a teenager keyed cars late one night, he watched the whole thing but did nothing. When the woman a few units down drove her truck into the parked Lexus, he watched and did nothing. When Chris's unit caught fire on Christmas Eve, he casually walked next door and told Mary that there was a fire and she could leave. And she should leave. One time we called the police when we didn't see him for 6 months. And before he put that match in the trash can, it was another long sequence of time that kept him locked up there. Smoldering paper followed him down the stairs, and each neighbor walked out that night watching the flames shoot from Chris's window as if they'd been there, bottled up the whole time, ready to explode. Firefighters shoveled charred, soggy paper out of the hole that used to be his solitary bedroom. Eventually, a year later, Chris's home was rebuilt, and Chris came back and locked himself back inside. Diana shares our ceiling. It is her floor. We hear her pacing late at night as if she is chasing her shadow in an endless, unsolvable mystery. Her lights are off in the day and then on in the night when the windows open, illuminating the trees, making shapes against the walls. Diana often runs the hose for days, and I secretly turn it off and roll it back up. We try to avoid her now so that she doesn't accuse us of stealing her CDs, making pizzas in her kitchen, or using her ink. The things she says we steal, we apparently return them, but she wants us to stop. Citing commandments, she always approaches us with guarded cynicism. Someone is also taking her mail, the HOA president says. She called in a panic late at night and demanded the locks be changed. Despite the new locks, she glares at us. Each time we see her, she looks more despondent, with glassy eyes and skin that lightly grips her bones. We see her more in the summer when she washes her car under vacant upstairs units. We know the neighbors next door. We've been over to Ron's to borrow ingredients for Christmas dinner, and we bring each other mail that was inadvertently put with ours. Martin and Francis invite us to hear their daughter play guitar, while the Irishman from church plays the fiddle. We make them muffins and they bring leftovers. We walk when we walk our dogs, asking about each other's health. We pass each other to and from work, waving, smiling, carefully glancing upward as we drive away.
I liked how you describe each of these characters, and they're real, but they seem like characters to me. The grease outline of his face could be seen making a ghostly frown of concern. And then with
That was
Diana,
my favorite line.
was it?
Me too. Me too.
It's disgusting.
And it reminded me of like a J.D. Salinger kind of a line. I mean, I just remembered Catcher in the Rye when I read that, or when he read it. And then with Diana's glassy eyes and skin that lightly grips her bones. And it's just haunting, and it really, the description is so vivid to me. I loved that.
It's like The Catcher in the Rye meets The House on Mango Street.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a great description.
That is actually a good way of putting it.
I feel like you could write a whole novel about Chris.
Oh, yes.
He's just fascinating.
Yeah.
And I love that he's trying to catch a thief who is dead. It just opens up so many questions. And the image of him casually walking next door while his apartment or his condo burns down is so powerful. It's a really wonderful image. In a way, so you talk about these wild neighbors, and then you talk about like the kind of normal, boring neighbors, and they almost seem wild because they're just normal.
Thank you.
I like, I'll just end with, I like how you list off everything Chris doesn't tackle. I thought that was a really funny, because it could be very disturbing to read, but that added a sense of humor, so that when we got to the normal neighbors, they kind of fit in. They all are like, I use the word like they're all enveloped in the condo, and I think like that detail of Chris helped to bring a humor to it and not just have it be dark.
Did you do that on purpose? Put the normal neighbors at the end?
Yeah, it's short, and I wanted to keep it short, so I don't want to talk about them too much. But I thought they would show up at the end after I talk about the neighbors that were unique in the beginning.
It was a nice way to kind of tie up the story. It packaged it nicely.
They probably have stories too, though.
Yes. I would love
Everybody has a story.
Yes, everybody. That's true.
Well, thank you guys. That's a lot of awesome feedback.
Okay, I'll read mine. I don't have a title either, so I would love some suggestions. My hair has a mind of its own. I don't dare tell it what to do. No amount of coaxing, sweet talking, or name brand hair products will convince it to go my way. If it feels like being tame and curly one day and frizzy and dry the next, it will. I used to approach it with the kind of naivete that causes idealistic 20-somethings to get themselves into trouble, but since then, I've shamelessly surrendered. I finally learned to stop fighting it and be happily jaded instead. Our fights used to be violent and wretched, and a few of our battles came close to a good old-fashioned scalping. It was ugly. Names were called, feelings were hurt, mothers were insulted. No matter how much I persevered, my hair triumphed. Aside from the occasional conciliatory victory, I always ended up in disgraceful defeat. I finally learned to acquiesce and let my hair do as it pleases. We no longer bicker about where it will be parted. We no longer debate ratty and brittle versus thinning and dry. I simply submit. Since I started cooperating, I've noticed that I haven't had as many bad hair days as I used to. Don't get me wrong, I don't agree with all of its decisions. On the days where I can't bear it anymore, I turn to the solace and the comfort of my loyal hair clip or my trusty ponytail holder. However, that's about the extent of the control that I have. I'm not bitter, nor am I resentful. I'm merely trained. I now treat it well by lavishing it with ridiculously expensive shampoos and conditioners. I don't blow dry it daily like I used to in the days when we were less amicable. I avoid the flat iron at all costs. I have discovered peace in this humble state, and we have an unspoken understanding. It's the boss of me, and I'm much happier living with that reality.
I love that you have completely personified your hair and made it into the antagonist in this story. It's so humorous. It's wonderful. And I love that your hair fights back. It doesn't just leave you alone. My favorite line, my golden line, is names were called, feelings were hurt, mothers were insulted.
I remember that day.
Yeah, I noted the same thing. It's the personification of the hair that's, and it's subtle, you know. And as you go through it, it's like we watch you grapple with this relationship. And I like how it ends with, it's the boss of me.
Mm-hmm.
And then the beginning, though, it's a really, the statement, my hair has a mind of its own. What do you call that? The statements where it's, I'm missing something here. Like, it's the boss of me, or you say like, oh, never mind. But it's general. It's really this
Okay.
kind of vague, common statement, you know, a cliche. There
Oh,
we go.
okay.
Like something's
Oh,
the
I
boss,
should've
you
read
know,
it.
something has a mind of its own. So that
Yeah.
cliche then becomes, it's not like really a cliche anymore, because now there's a relationship and
I get
a
it.
conflict going on that's not real, but then it takes the cliche away from something has a mind of its own. So it has this cool, unique humor in it that, I don't know, it's really enjoyable.
Well, I'll speak to your sentence structure because I really like the long and short sentences combined, but I really like the short sentences, and I think it really fits well with a humorous tone. So like when you say things like "it was ugly" or "I simply submit," those lines really stand out, and it allows you to like take a breath and just laugh about it because it's a really funny piece. You did a good job.
Thank you.
I thought you could use one of those little phrases as your title because you were asking about it, the title. So I thought maybe the boss of me
The boss of
or
me.
submission, kind of
That's
capturing
good.
one of those phrases that you have incorporated in your story.
That's good. Thank you.
Great job.
I like that. Thanks,
All right.
guys.
All right, thank you. This was great.
Mhm.